Robert Jury, you wrote, directed, and produced Working Man, which is about the struggles of workers in a factory town after that factory closes down. This is your feature film debut. So, had you gone into writing it, already knowing that you wanted to direct it?
I did, I guess, only because it's the sort of story that I really didn't feel like it was going to be a studio movie from the time that I conceived the story. It's something that the first draft was written over a decade ago, and I was working on a couple studio projects, and I had a pretty good sense that if I was going to get this idea, this story, this movie made, it would be something that I'd have to do independently. So yeah, it that was the plan, but you never know if it's going to work out. It's taken us the better part of a decade to get here, but we're really happy with the results and so far the critical response.
And what first inspired you to tell this particular story? Like, was there a certain story or experience or just kind of kernel that the whole thing grew out of?
Sure. Well, I grew up around factory towns along the Mississippi River in the Midwest in the Rust Belt, and I just really hadn't seen characters and people like the folks that I grew up with. I didn't see them on screen very often, or at least in an authentic way. And when I had this idea of a factory worker that continues to go back to his job, to his plant, even though the factory is closed down, it seemed like I would have, knowing my background and the people that I've grown up with, family members, friends that still work in factories, I felt like I could maybe give this a um, an element of authenticity that maybe a lot of other writers or filmmakers couldn't.
And you mentioned that the initial sort of drafts were written several years ago. Did the story go through a lot of changes as you were like as you know throughout that time, or is kind of the story that we see on the screen very close to what it was when you originally envisioned it?
No, it changed quite a bit, Daniel. I again, not knowing really what to do with the script when I finished it, I submitted it to the Film Independent Screenwriting Lab and was fortunate enough to get selected um, for that lab and workshopped it with a really great mentor of mine named Meg LaFoe. Meg introduced me to a friend of hers named Clark Peterson, a producer. And for the next decade, we tried everything under the sun to try to get the film made. And that also involved me going through numerous rewrites and finally got to a point in, I want to say it was maybe 2014, 2015, where there was the elements started to come together. It really started to feel like this was going to be the story. If we were ever going to shoot it, this was going to be the script. But it took some time, and um, it was a great lesson for me as a writer, I suppose, that better than rushing a piece of work and pushing to get it out there. Um, I think our movie definitely benefited from this maybe lengthy lengthy period of development.
And you've got your lead actor in the film, Peter Garrity, who is a veteran of film, television. He's the kind of actor who, even if you don't know his name, you've loved him in something over the last 30 or 40 years. Um, at what point, did you write with sort of an actor in mind, or did he ended up just like speaking to the role?
No, I didn't write with any particular actor in mind, but I can't imagine that we could have ended up with three better leads than we did. Peter, of course, is our working man, our factory worker, and there's a neighbor played by Billy Brown, who most people would recognize from How to Get Away with Murder. He played opposite Viola Davis in that series, in addition to numerous television shows and films. And of course, Talia Shire was our third lead. Most people would recognize Talia, of course, as two-time Academy Award nominee and from the Rocky films and the Godfather movies. So she's kind of sharing double duty right now, promoting both Working Man and her brother's recut of Godfather 3 right now. But so we were really fortunate with all of our actors when they came on board. But I can't say that I wrote it for any one person in mind. It's sometimes you just get lucky with the cast that you end up with.
The lead character, Peter Garrity's character, is a very soft spoken man. He doesn't express himself openly very much, especially towards the beginning of the film. What's it like, sort of writing the silences, like, to kind of create these spaces where the actor is creating something kind of under the surface, but it's not necessarily coming out in all the dialogue early on.
Right. Well, it's patience, right? Because you hope that the audience will hang in there with you as you develop these characters. Our editing team was a kind of a unique duo, father-daughter duo. Richard and Morgan Halsey. Richard was is he has a bit of an illustrious history himself. He actually won the Oscar for editing Rocky, Talia Shire's movie back in '76, and hasn't worked with or for a project that had Talia in it until this one. Um, but he made the comment to me during the editing process. Richard did that. It felt like maybe a movie that he would have made in the 1970s, and I really took that as a great compliment. I love that era of films, in particular some of the movies that Richard worked on, Rocky included, and he told the story that when studio executives saw the first 40 minutes of Rocky, they were outraged because nothing was happening, right? It's just this boxer going about his routine. And as Richard was watching Working Man develop in editing between his daughter Morgan and myself, he said, this has a lot of that same element and tempo. So um, I think it may be a little more challenging in our current climate when we're such an instant gratification society and we want to move quickly. But I love movies that are slow burns and take a little more patience. And hopefully people hang around and see what's around the corner in our film as well. One of my first influences of movies beyond the '70s, um, David Lynch did a really beautiful film called The Straight Story, starring another kind of unknown character actor named Richard Farnsworth. And it's just a beautiful story of a, it's and a little bit strange. It's another oddball story of a man who's possessed to go see his brother. He's on a lawnmower, but there's this pace, right? There's this slow um, beginning, but the filmmaker asks of the audience to hang in there, right? That there's going to be something revealed, and I think Working Man does that as well. At least I hope.
And the Billy Brown character Walter, he sort of has his own emotional, psychological trajectory moving through the film that we don't know about or understand quite right away. What was it like writing that character and sort of discovering who he was and letting the audience discover who he was gradually?
Right. Well, there's a pretty strong theme of mental health in Working Man that's revealed as the movie plays out, and that was really the missing element for Billy's character. He plays this neighbor who becomes involved with Peter's Working Man, and again that was drawn from personal and family experience, and when I was able to come to the conclusion that that I could marry these two worlds, it really felt like that piece of the puzzle being dropped into place. You know what I mean? And writers will understand this. It's you could just keep working at an idea, keep working at an idea, and for me, the question was always Walter. I always kept coming back to that character, Billy Brown's character of Walter, his motivations, why he's doing what he's doing, why he's so interested, right, in what Peter Garrity's character is doing. Why is he so interested in going back to this factory and supporting this man? And once I um, started to come to those conclusions that I could merge these ideas, it really seemed to fall into place. And I think Billy just did an extraordinary job. I mean, he's a very methodic, measured actor, and it played perfectly into who this character is, and couldn't be happier with the result.
The film is a happens to be very resonant today, like not just economic conditions in small towns in America and factory towns in America, but also how, of course, the pandemic has affected people, put a lot of people out of work. So there's a lot in this that people who are experiencing the world right now can relate to. What do you hope people take away about sort of work and the economy and what people's lives are like?
Yeah, as you say, it's just the fact that this movie's released now in the pandemic, right? I couldn't have anticipated that. And the fact that so many millions are out of work and can maybe relate more to a character like this who's thrown out of his job after many years, and what that means to so many of us. Um, I think it's just that. It's just how much we've come to realize as a society, as a world, the importance of work, that purpose that we need to get up every day, and beyond just being with our friends, our family, and those important things in our lives. That necessity that we have to achieve something, to work at a goal, and factory worker, screenwriter, whatever it is. I think these things, that purpose is so important. And I know, when we started to hear news of the vaccine, I think so many people started immediately thinking about how that's going to affect their working life, and I think that feeds directly into our film, and so many of the themes, and as you say, I think it's relevant for our time.